When I saw AI coming, I kind of thought that I'd be a little bit more chill and I wouldn't have to work as fast. It feels like AI is pushing us all to be more
Yeah.
productive.
Rilla is a product for sales managers to actually coach 100 times more productively.
Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast. And today I've got Sebastian Jimenez on from Rilla AI. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Excited to be here. This is always fun.
We're talking about a roofing sales artificial intelligence, which is going to answer your burning questions. And this is based on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of roofing sales questions, probably in the millions now, maybe?
Yeah, for roofing, if I'm thinking like, half of our customers are in roofing, and, general exterior remodeling. So I'm imagining that there has to be at least 1 million conversations that are coming from roofing. So
Incredible. So 1 million conversations analyzed,
yeah.
and we're going to ask this AI questions. Sebastian, can you just give a 1 minute synopsis of
Yeah.
why this tool is amazing for roofing business?
Yeah, so for those of you guys who haven't heard yet, so I'm Sebastian, I'm founder and CEO of Rilla. Rilla is the leading virtual ride-along software for the roofing industry and the general home improvement industry. So what that means is when your salespeople go out there and talk to homeowners, they record their conversations on their mobile apps through their phones and tablets, and then we use AI to transcribe, analyze, and give them feedback to help them improve their sales and to help their sales managers do what we call virtual ride-alongs that are 100 times faster, better, and more productive. Because we've been so fortunate enough that we've grown incredibly quickly over the last 2 years, Tim, one of the first videos that we have out of Rilla, you saw us, I think it was at IRE 2022 when we started selling. And we've been so fortunate in the last 2 years. We've grown dramatically fast. We've processed, like I said, over 1 million conversations in the roofing industry. And because of that, we can literally ask our AI, like, what are the top differences between the top salespeople in roofing that are closing, $5 million, $6 million a year for their businesses, and the average roofing salespeople and the worst roofing salespeople? Like, what makes a top performer tick? And we do this thing that we call Moneyball for sales, where we look at the data behind selling to try to understand what actually can help you become a better salesperson. So that's what we could do today.
And this will help you bake up better salespeople within your company. But today we're going to do something a little bit different with this
Yes.
tool, which is analyze over many, many companies, obviously 1 million
Yes.
sales calls.
Yes.
And we're going to ask it first the most basic question of all,
Yeah.
which is what percentage of all of these sales calls that were analyzed? By the way, it sounds like it's a little bit more retail than it is storm.
Yes, it is.
And what percentage of all of the sales calls were sold?
So for the analysis that we ran, we looked at all of our roofing customers, and we wanted to keep it from the last quarter. Okay, so this is like, not this quarter, but the last one. So it's like right before the summer, so the Q2, because we wanted to keep the data recent. And so we analyzed a few tens of thousands of conversations there, and we found, and we wanted to keep it to conversations where we had an outcome, whether it's sold or not sold. So in insurance, there's like many different kind of conversations. You have the door knock sometimes, where you try to like tell the homeowner, like, hey, we want to do a free inspection. Then you have the inspection, then you have the adjuster meeting. So to keep it simple, we wanted to focus on the retail roofing, where you go in for a whole long appointment and you're actually going to sell it or you're not going to sell it, because then it's binary. It's very easy to analyze the data. So for this type of conversation, for an in-home appointment at scale in the last quarter, the average close rate, right, was 20%. 20% of the conversations were actually sold. 20%.
I think it's fascinating because, well, if you throw that question to all roofers in a Facebook group, they will tell you much higher numbers than that.
Yeah.
Because it's the guys who want to answer it that one are they're flexing, or maybe that's a misrepresentation of the actual average because the people that are answering that are high performers. Those are two possibilities, probably a mixture of both.
Yeah, and I would say also, like, a classifier in this data, you have to take into account that this is only for, like, this is net sold. So this means the job didn't cancel, the job remains sold. Okay, so it's still marked as sold on the CRMs, not as canceled, not as so a lot of roofers, when they tell you their close rates, they tell you their gross close rates. Like, I sold it, but then look at the cancellation rate. Okay, then you're gonna have a 20%, 10%, right? So yeah. If you're at 30% as a roofer, you're doing way above the average on a net sold basis.
And I think we're going to even look at some graphs today. My next question is there an ideal length of time to talk to a homeowner during a roofing sales appointment?
Yes. So this is an interesting question, and this is a question that we've answered in other times for other industries and in the home improvement industry. And Tim, this is one of those questions where people always like get riled up about the answer, but literally every single time that we've cut the numbers this way, which way, it always comes with the same answer, which is there's an insanely high correlation between time in home and increasing your close rates and increasing your average tickets. What do I mean by this? So from the general data set that we looked at, the average ticket was $18,000. Just keep that in mind. $18,000 was the average ticket for the roofing sales conversations that we looked at. Again, retail roofing, not insurance. So in insurance, you're going to have lower tickets, right? We're looking at $18,000 average ticket was the size of our database. And keep in mind that we work with some of the bigger customers, some of the bigger roofers. So they're likely to have higher tickets already because they work with Rilla. So, but let me show you here. So if we look at this graph, and there is a clear correlation between, um, you know, spending more time in the home and closing more deals. So the true says is sold true. This is very raw data because we just did it, super quick for this podcast. So,
Sure.
what this means is 7,000 seconds. If you divide that over 60, that is 1 hour and 56 minutes, 116 minutes, right? So an hour and 56 minutes is the average length of time of a conversation that led to a sale. And this 4,500 seconds means that it is, you know, over 60, it's 75 minutes, an hour and 50 minutes. So the average length of a conversation in roofing that led to a sale was 1 hour and 56 minutes versus the ones that did not lead to a sale was 1 hour and 15 minutes. So it's almost 100% higher, not quite 100%, but almost 100% higher. The talk time, the length of the conversation when you are selling versus when you are not. So there's a clear correlation there. Obviously, correlation does not imply causation. There's a lot of things at play here. But what you look at the next graph, which is the average ticket graph, you see the same thing. In the roofing, industry, what you see is that the average ticket for the conversations we looked at remains pretty steady from 0 minutes to 1 hour, an hour and 30 minutes. But once you get across the 2 hour mark, above that 2 hour mark, you see that you start increasing marginally. You start increasing the average ticket. So this is the average ticket, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. And once you start getting above that 2 hour mark, right, that's when you start seeing a market increase in your average tickets. So for instance, here, you see a market increase here. When you get to 240 minutes, that's 4 hours. 4 hours in the home. This is 5 hours in the home. This is 6 hours in the home. And you could see that these are the tickets that are getting close to that $25,000 or above. So,
So
yes,
I'm going to bring this up because we've shared data like this before for HVAC and plumbing. And by the way, the same exact
same
finding.
thing.
So
Yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
let's go through the objections that we saw last time so that we can talk through them. One, if there is a diminishing return, like if you only get 5,000 more dollars for spending an entire week
Right,
there, right?
right.
Then
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we're not
yeah.
going to do that, probably, right?
Yeah.
There, you have to make that decision. However, it kind of makes sense, right? It kind of makes sense that if you're spending more time, maybe it's a more complex project.
Yes.
Maybe that's why the numbers have gone up. So those are two kind of major things. We want to give voice those to the is not that I don't want your hate comments below. Go for it. We would love that. But we want to give the full like we understand that there's complexity here. It's just interesting to look at this data
Yeah.
and see that so obviously. And it's like, what can we can't shake a stick. Those are real numbers.
Well, what's interesting in these type of roofing jobs, unlike the HVAC and the plumbing industry, a lot of the times the technicians in HVAC and plumbing, they're doing the job on the job. Like they're saying like, hey, we came out for a repair. I'm going to spend a little bit of time with the homeowner sell them some UV lights, some indoor air quality products, some upselling, and then they're literally going to fix your thing right there. A lot of the roofing conversations, as you know, Tim, you sell the roof and then you schedule the job, right? Because you have to, you have to replace the whole roof. You have to schedule it. You don't start working on it immediately, right? So when you look at this, it's like there could be something similar happening here where it's like it takes a longer time to go through the inspection to actually go through the house. If it's a bigger home, you're going to have to give more time to look at the roof and actually do a proper inspection. So that might be affecting the average ticket, obviously, because if it's a bigger home, it's going to be a bigger ticket for the roof, and it's also going to take you more time to do the inspection, right? So it's not necessarily that you're doing the job on the spot and it's taking longer. It's just that it takes more time to evaluate the whole home if you're doing an inspection in a bigger home, and leads to a higher average ticket, right? Because you have to get more shingles and stuff like that. It's the same thing with windows.
Let's talk about that too then, because I think you have data around what is the ideal length for the actual roof inspection. I've just anecdotally, I've heard people in the past say, I go up there and I kind of like do my roofing inspection and then I hang out for a little while.
Yeah. So
because it
yes,
actually helps the homeowner perception. I wonder if that's actually true or if that's just, so how long should a roof inspection be that actually helps the homeowner see the value in it, I guess is the question.
Yeah, so I saw that. Well, that was one of the questions that the people in your Facebook group submitted, where they were like, I want to see how long does it take to do an inspection? What's the ideal time to do an inspection? With Rilla, because we analyze what people are saying, we can analyze not necessarily how long they spent doing the inspection, like actually walking through and taking pictures and like looking at the mold, but how much time did they spend going through the results of their inspection with the homeowner, right?
Okay.
How much time did they actually spend unpacking the inspection and talking about the inspection with the homeowner and talking about the problems, the mold and stuff like that. And what we found was very interesting because we found two contradicting points of data, which is very, very interesting. This was actually the most interesting data that we found this time around. So if you look at close rates and you try to correlate inspection time with close rates, the more time you spend doing and evaluating and doing the summary of the inspection with the homeowner, the higher the close rate, right? So you get into, this is 55 to 60 minutes. So that literally means you're spending an entire hour of time talking about the result of your inspection with the homeowner, and your close rate is 60%, right? And you can see that it stays pretty consistent. Like there's not that much increasing. Like this is 0 to 5 minutes, 5 minutes to 10, 10 to 15, right? It stays pretty consistent, diminishing marginal returns. It ebbs and flows, right? It ebbs and flows. But then you see a market increase here in the close rate. So it seems like the more time you spend on the inspection, the better it helps, but not necessarily, because if you fall into one of those buckets, it means that there might be some diminishing marginal returns. But the data suggests that there's an upward trend here. What's so interesting is if you look at average ticket, so, this one we could take as an outlier because it falls out of the pattern. But if you look at the pattern here, you see the pattern here. It's like, okay, the average ticket. So this is how much time you spent in the inspection. So this is 0 to 5 minutes, 5 minutes to 10 minutes, 10 minutes to 15 minutes. And this is the average ticket, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. You see that the average ticket, if you're spending 5 to 10 minutes, it starts going up. If you go to 10 to 15 minutes, you go to 15 to 20 minutes. But then you hit a point of diminishing marginal returns at 20 minutes when it starts going down again if you're spending 30 to 35 minutes in talking about the inspection.
Can I do a play-by-play here? Like if I was reacting to this, like it was a basketball game, I would be like, the homeowner is getting exhausted of you talking about this and actually doesn't care that much about the specifics, but rather wants to see the price or potentially know more about your company rather than hearing about their problem.
Hey guys, this is Bruce by Don, and when dealing with insurance companies, you definitely need an expert by your side. So if you need someone to walk in, hold your hands throughout the insurance process, not really, Max. Deal with the experts, supplement experts.
You can hold my hand.
Right. So what this tells me here, what I'm assuming or interpreting the data, and again, I'm just interpreting it like you are, right? Because this is just the data, right? But we have to unpack it. What this tells me is that a lot of contractors and a lot of salespeople, they're barely spending any time talking about the inspections. They're not being thorough enough. 0 to 5 minutes unpacking the results, right? 0 to 5 minutes, that's how long it takes you to say hello to somebody and introduce yourself, right? The 5 minutes goes by very quickly, right? But if But if you actually look at it, there is value in being a little bit more thorough
Yeah.
and showing your expertise and actually walking the homeowner through all the issues and understand and making them understand why it's an issue, why the mold is not a problem just today, but it's a problem in the future. How it's going to decay the rest of your home, right? How it's going to cause some respiratory problems for your family, right? That's important. Talking about all those problems that you identify in the inspection. But then once you get to that 20-25 minute mark, if you stay on for too long, you're like a guest that stayed on for too long in the home, right? You're just like, hey, get to the point, right? So it's like, and that's where you get the diminishing marginal returns to the
So say
inspection.
the number one more time was like 25 minutes is good, and then it goes down after that.
After 25 minutes, it starts going. After 20 to 25 minutes, it starts going down again.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's about how long I would want to tolerate.
So,
it's not, like if you're only listening, the graph doesn't go down really quickly. It just kind of slowly goes down.
It just gets you back to where you started to the beginning, and it just gets you back where you started. What is interesting though is that it does increase your close rate, but it might be, but it's like, it's increasing your close rate at the expense of the average ticket, right? It might be like, it's a weird kind of dynamic here, because you see this with close rate, it's going up and up and up, right? But then it's going here, it's just, goes up and then it goes down,
Yeah,
which is so interesting, right?
Why? Like I'm sorry, Sebastian. I feel like you probably know why that's interesting, and I don't.
So keep in mind that. So I think the reason it's interesting, right? The reason it's interesting is, I think that it's like keep in mind, all of these conversations were sold. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like when you close it, it's like, this is like whether you closed it or not, right? This is like whether you closed it or not. So here, 80% of these conversations didn't close, right? So 80% of these conversations did not close at all. But what it might seem
0 to 5 minutes.
Right. So then it might make sense that the longer you speak, like the higher the close rate, but it might mean, because it's a lower ticket, you're also, because you see how the ticket starts going down after you spend more time, right? So it might mean that it's easier to close a lower ticket than it is to close a higher ticket. And you see what I'm saying? So there's the close rate is increasing, but the average ticket is decreasing the more you talk, right?
Okay,
So it might mean that it's easier to close a lower ticket than it is a higher average ticket, right? So that's kind of how I explain it. So it's not necessarily that it's helpful to spend so much time talking about the inspection. It's like, hey, you're spending a lot of time talking about the inspection, the tickets are lower, so you're closing them lower or higher, right? But then you're also, it's like, it's a very interesting data, but because you're seeing two opposite points here. So because if you're a rep and you're thinking, okay, so is the answer from this is that I should be spending more time talking about the inspection or less time? I think if you're trying to increase your close rates, you spend a little bit more time. But then to be safe that you're not hurting your average ticket, you're not going to spend more than 25 minutes. That's how I would interpret the data. Not more than 25 minutes.
Okay, I love that. And then you did have some data as well on like if they actually did it perform a roof inspection or not.
Yes. So what's interesting is most of the conversations did perform a roofing inspection, right? But the close rate was a little bit higher than the average close rate. So it was like 21. So most roofers are doing an inspection in these conversations, right? So the average close rate is like 21%. So it's like very close to the average, right? What's funny about that, in the small percentage of conversations where the roofing tracker was not hit, the close rate was much lower than the average. It was 14%. Okay. So not going through the inspection results with the homeowner, like not actually spending any time at all going through that inspection result with the homeowner. Like if you just like launch into a price without actually doing a proper inspection and then presenting the results of that inspection with the homeowner, your close rate is going to go down from 21% to 14%. That's a third. That's like a 30%. Yeah, that's a 30% difference. That's a 30% lower net close rate if you're not doing an inspection than when you are. Right? So just like very basic stuff that you should be doing as a roofing salesperson.
Yeah.
Make sure you're walking the homeowner through the inspection.
I'm kind of surprised that some people don't at all,
Yeah.
Sebastian, I want to open things up a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about predictions with you. You have a unique vantage point as being somebody who's been early in the AI space, at least for home services. You've been
Yes.
super early. And my question to you is kind of like, what is developing now that's like, I know you're not promising any features or anything like that. I'm just curious, like, what's coming? And like, you also probably get to have conversations with other innovative products around the industry or that you're seeing in the AI space. I'm just curious, like, what are you predicting happens over this
Yeah.
next 5, 10 years? And like, please don't tell me that we don't get to like sell or roof houses and robots will do it all for us yet.
Yeah. So in terms of AI predictions, so I can tell you what we're working with Rilla, right? Is we're working on um, uh, uh, I can say this that there's two things that are happening largely with AI. One thing that's happening is automation. There's a lot of jobs that are going to be automated. And then there's another thing that's happening, which is not automating, but enhancement of the human being, where computers are becoming much better for humans to communicate with, and they're becoming much better at assisting humans at the core things that they're really able to do really well.
Let me
So
just say one thing real quick there before we move on, then I won't interrupt. It is crazy though. When I saw AI coming, I kind of thought that I'd be a little bit more like chill and I wouldn't have to work as fast. It feels like AI is pushing us all to be more
yeah,
productive and like quicker, and
absolutely,
it's ramping up this like speed a little bit in work product that I find
absolutely.
a little bit like, come on, AI, you're supposed to help us relax.
No, no, it's the total opposite because what happens is so I'll give you an example of that, right? So Rilla is not in the automation business. We don't automate any job at all, actually. People think like, oh my God, do you automate the sales managers? Quite the opposite. Rilla is a product for sales managers to actually coach 100 times more productively. So you think of a tool like Rilla, right? People thought that they were going to be doing less ride-alongs with Rilla, right? Because with Rilla you're doing it virtually, so you don't have to do as many ride-alongs. Wrong. The average sales manager before Rilla was doing like maybe like two ride-alongs. Great sales managers. Most sales managers are not even doing ride-alongs. The average great sales manager was doing an average of two ride-alongs a week. With Rilla, with Rilla, those same sales managers that were doing two ride-alongs a week are now doing 400 ride-alongs in a month, right? So that's 100 ride-alongs a week. That's 50 times more ride-alongs. Why does that happen? Because the barrier to entry, the ride-along is a very cost prohibitive thing to do as a sales manager because it's physical, right? You have to like schedule time, literally meet with the sales rep, drive there, watch the whole appointment, and then give them feedback. It takes a lot of commitment. So the cost is very prohibitive. When you do a virtual ride along, you lower the cost, and now you can do much more of that activity from the comfort of your home or office.
Is it just scrubbing through the conversation, or how you don't have to listen to the whole conversation?
No, no, no. So an average ride along on Rilla takes you about 3 minutes when an average physical ride along takes you 3 hours. So 3 hours, that's 180 minutes over three. That's why I say it's a 50 times improvement in the productivity of the sales manager, right? And we have sales managers that are doing 400, 800, 1,000 virtual ride alongs every single month. If you think about the good analogy for this, like, and it goes to your point about technology doesn't move things slower and it doesn't remove work. It adds more work a lot of the times, especially when it enhances the capabilities of the human being. Think of something like email, right? The average professional, there's about 1 billion people in the world. There are, like professionals that work in computers. They're spending an average of 2 hours per day on email. 2 hours per day. That's like billions and billions of hours a day as a human species that we're devoting to this activity that's called email. Do you think that people back in the 1800s were spending 2 hours of their day writing letters? They were not. They were not because why? Because before it took a long time to write a letter, it was cost prohibitive. You had to buy ink. You had to be really rich to write letters, right? You had to put the letter in an envelope, give it to somebody. They had to fly a pigeon out there or give somebody a guy with the US Postal Service started with people riding horses around the country, right? So in order to deliver the letter, it was going to take months. And for you to get a letter back, it was going to take another few months. So the process of having communication through letters was so long that you didn't have the opportunity to send that many letters. With email, now you're not sending one letter, every 3 months. You're sending 10 emails an hour, right? Because it's so easy. So when you see technology doesn't remove work from the human being, it actually adds work to the human being in a lot of cases, especially if it's a technology that lowers the barrier to entry to an activity. That's what Rilla did with a thing like the ride along. More managers are doing ride-alongs now because it's less cost prohibitive. So they're actually spending more of their mind share doing ride-alongs than before, because before it was so cost prohibitive. So people underestimate the impact of technology. It's like the same thing. Less people were spending time watching movies, and now because of the internet, now you can watch movies all day on Netflix, and people are actually spending more time. You know what I mean? So it's anytime technology makes something easier, people tend to do more of that thing, not less, right? So that's the whole enhancement of AI. So like if you see something in your business, if you want to predict that, that's really difficult to do, and you can see how AI can help that, you're going to be seeing much more of that activity happening in the future, not less. Now, you could also go into the automation side, into the automation territory, right? So you mentioned like AI, and I'm going to talk about an example that's going to show both, right? So you have automated call centers. Automated call center agents, what that means is you're a roofing business. Instead of getting calls, right, to your business, somebody books an appointment and you call them with a human being, a human CSR. What calls them is a computer, a machine learning language that mimics the voice of a human being and calls them. And it sounds like a human being. It sounds like your top performers. There's companies like Avoca AI that specifically serve home improvement contractors. And it's a machine that's just running your entire call center.
Yeah.
And the customer's talking to a computer.
Somebody on who was talking about this. Actually, the one I had on, who was it? Max Mead is the guy. I need to look up his company, but he has one of these as well.
So there's a bunch coming out because of ChatGPT. It's possible now because
Livo is the one. Livo, sorry.
There's a ton out there that are coming out with doing AI generated call centers. But you think, okay, so that probably will replace a lot of CSRs, right? Because now you can literally automate the job. That will happen, guys. Like I'm not trying to be scary here. So some jobs will be automated. But then what does that do? If you have an AI generated call center that can call 100 times more than an average human being because it could just send calls and calls and calls, what does that mean? That means that your human salespeople get to do more appointments. You know what I mean? So that means that there's going to be more appointments for actual human salespeople to run in person. Because one thing that we're not going to automate at all right now and not in the near future, we have no concept of how to do this, is the actual in-person sale. The AI is really good at dealing with natural language in the internet. It's horrible at understanding the physical 3D world. You still cannot teach an AI computer how to lift the phone and how to open a door, how to shake a hand, how to crawl up an attic and take a picture. We have no concept of how to do that. So there's a lot of the back office work that's going to be automated, like the dispatching, the call centers, marketing. A lot of that is going to be automated. There's tools like Chirp that automate a lot of your marketing and your follow-up, right? Your rehash. And there's tools like Avoca that automate your call center. But the salesperson, the in-person salesperson, is not going to be automated. The human beings that deal with coaching and training other human beings, still not going to be automated. Those are things that are going to be enhanced by AI, not automated.
Do you have any other crazy AI tools that aren't yours that you've seen recently out and about it? Like, I'm sure you've been at some events and stuff like that. Talk to me about anything that's crazy that's out there.
Join the future of roofing at offers.roofle.com. Stand out, save time, earn more.
The craziest thing I've seen, and this is insane, and I've seen their growth rate, it's just crazy. And this is for roofers. So for people that are doing insurance roofing, right? There's this tool called XBuild. I think the website is x.build. The founders, I met the founders. Yes, x.build. X.build, that's their website. I met the founders. They're former Uber guys. Like they used to work at Uber, and they're building a company specifically for roofing contractors that do insurance. And you know what they do, Tim? They basically automate the entire insurance approval process. Like when you as a roofer go into a home and you take pictures of the inspection and you try to send it to the adjuster and you try to send it to the insurance company to try to get it approved by the insurance, right? And you have to do all this paperwork and you have to hire people internally. You have to send emails. You have to explain the pictures, do a proposal. All you have to do now with XBuild is you take the pictures and they use computer vision. They analyze the entire picture and they write your entire, and they take care of the whole thing. They automate everything. You just focus on doing your job, showing up to the inspection, and then they handle the rest in the back office, right? This is another one of those examples where the back office is getting automated, right? With AI, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's AI-powered construction platform that handles estimations, implementation, closeout.
If you're friends with them, you should give me an introduction to have them on the show.
Oh, absolutely, dude. So like literally you go to their website and it says submit damage photos through our app. Number 2, get your auto-generated scope. Number 3, X-Build obtains insurance approval. And that's it.
That's
Like,
awesome.
you take the picture.
Okay, so anything else, like maybe not even in the roofing specific world? One that I want to share, I'm going to keep on sharing it, is Loom has, if you record a video and it will auto, like let's say a standard operating procedure, like for office job,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
will automatically create a standard operating procedure, like
Mm,
document with all like the bullet points and everything. Like,
yes.
so just like video software that's now turning your stuff into standard operating procedures, loom.com. So that's one I like, but I feel like you probably get an eye to this stuff because your stuff is so innovative. So you probably get to hang
Yes.
out with the other innovative
Oh, yeah.
times.
Oh, yeah. There's a in the HVAC space, there's this company called Conduit Tech. They
Yeah.
are using LiDAR technology on your phones to essentially take a whole measurement of the home with the phone's LiDAR to try to calculate what the average temperature is so that they can tell you, it work with mostly for HVAC contractors, so that they can do like a heat load calculation of the entire home, including the windows and the space of the home, to see what the size of your HVAC unit should be just by using your phone and walking around and getting like and they build an entire 3D model of your entire home and tell you what the temperature of the HVAC unit needs to be, or what the size of the HVAC unit needs to be to control the temperature of your home, given the windows and the size of the home and everything. It's like really, really, really cool. A
That's
lot of
cool.
automation and enhancement. And that's
I,
another one that enhances the capability of human beings, right?
yeah, I love that. There's the one that's by Ken Goodrich too. That's got sensors that they what is it called again? Ken Goodrich. Basically, I'm looking over here in the HVAC space too, like what might be coming to roofing because I feel like they're a little bit ahead on the VC money and stuff and the private equity money, etc. So like the sensors, they put sensors around the house, like behind the washer machine and the fridge in different places, so that they get moisture levels, and then
Oh,
they,
wow.
it's pretty cool. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but what I see and what I think is going to continue to happen is that the the roofing business owners that get bought out are going to be the next wave of innovation that comes
Mm,
into the roofing space because they've had other great ideas
yeah.
but now they have money to go pursue their next thing and they have unique perspective on the problems and the opportunities in the roofing space. So they'll go in and start innovating. So I think there will be another wave here of the next 3 to 5 years of these big new startups in roofing that like,
Rufo. Rufo's there. That's Rufo. Guy who started
yeah,
his roofing business. You know about Rufo?
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, roofing business. He started selling online and then he built a platform to allow roofers to sell completely virtually online. And he grew his own roofing business with this concept of selling online all over America. And he was selling roofs all over America virtually completely. And now he has a platform that allows roofing contractors to do the same. They are one of the fastest growing startups right now that I've seen in America. And former roofing contractor founded his tech startup, super awesome team. And like, Jim Johnson was at AccuLinks early on, and he ran his roofing company. I mean, roofing contractors, home improvement contractors in general, are very, very entrepreneurial, insanely innovative people. I mean, that's the only, in a hyper competitive market like that, the only way you can get an edge is like by trying something new that nobody's tried before and making it work, right? So it makes
well
sense.
I do think that like, so the reason the HVAC and plumbing, like the sensors in the home is a smart idea is because like it's, to me it's about owning the home even if it's in 8 years when they need a new
Yep. Yep.
roof. So like
Oh yeah.
they can take that same principle of putting some kind of sensors in the attic. There's a lot of other things that are going on there too. There's, if moisture's coming through or if there's
Yep.
condensation or there's, there could be, it could need insulation or there could be other things. I feel like that same concept could just be flipped over to roofing. So if one of you guys is getting your private equity money, make that thing. And then what other ideas should we give them, Sebastian? I'm sure you got some ideas of if you weren't doing this, what's another startup you would start in the roofing space?
Oh, if I wasn't doing this, what other startup would I be starting in the roofing space? I would be doing something with like, you know, I'm just thinking about the entire roofing process.
Mm,
If somebody could do something like what Shelby's doing to create like, you know, I just think that the idea of taking pictures and showing it to the homeowner and being able to show that with like some sort of AR technology that shows you like the entire home with the pictures that you've taken so that the homeowner can see what's actually happening in there. It's like kind of like when you go to the doctor and they show you an x-ray of what's actually going on in your body, and being able to show that to the homeowner is so important. And I haven't seen that
So
yet.
one is Hover that does that, where it shows the
Yes,
picture.
yes.
That is one that is pretty cool. I did purchase a you know how many domains I probably have for all these stupid ideas, but
Yeah.
I bought Roof and Specs at some point because my idea was to put it as a checklist. Somebody might take this, but whatever.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to actually do anything with it,
You're like, whatever.
there's a
Somebody's gonna take it. Thank you for
there's a
taking it, gentlemen.
checklist, or yeah, go for it. Just a checklist so that then you could flip that to the homeowner, but there would be generic videos in there for, oh, you have a problem with no cricket on your chimney. And that's a common problem. So there's a video for that problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Mm-hmm.
essentially like a 30-second video for each of the problems that the roof has
Yes.
to explain
Yes.
the problem in great detail in a visual way. So then like you could create a stock, almost stock, like these are the problems that roofs have. And then you go up and do the checklist. You could also create a custom video right then and there and put it as part of the report. But that was the idea for Roof and Specs, which I never did anything with. If somebody needs the domain.
Yeah. So I think another thing is like, I think like um, one of the bottlenecks I think of like from first principles of like just anything home improvement in general is just the installation. It takes time and it takes effort. It's really costly. And I think that's one of the biggest areas where you can improve margins. And it's very difficult because every new sale that you have to make, you have to install a new roof. So whoever figures out a more, seamless way to make the installation happen. And I haven't seen a lot of innovation there.
Well,
Like that
Renovate,
affects.
there is Renovate Robotics. It's
Oh,
probably
wow.
super early right now. It's a prototype right now, and they can't. It does install roofs. It's
Oh,
just
wow. That they're securely attached to the roof.
it
Yeah.
feels like a little bit of a parlor trick at this point. You know, it's not
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but and it would be so expensive right now. But like we're in the early part of that, and I guess
Yes.
I feel like when you bring it up or people talk about it in the roofing space, everyone kind of quickly goes like, "Try, I want to see it try to do a valley," and it's true. Like
So
there's complicated aspects. It's just something to keep an eye on, and like if there
you
is
should
ever,
keep an eye on it
yeah,
because like any new technology that is disruptive, it usually starts out that way where people are like, oh yeah, that's a bunch of crap. Think about the internet in the 1990s. It's like, oh yeah, it's just a bunch of scammers and like, pornography in the internet. And like people laughed it off. There's a video of Bill Gates with Dave Letterman. And Dave Letterman's like, oh, the internet, huh? So you can watch games online. You mean like the radio? Like that's so stupid. Like it was like, it's, it's very easy to dismiss a new technology because it doesn't quite work yet. But if you just give it time, if you look at the new technology and you say like, well, but if it keeps getting better and better and better and it solves that, does it actually work? A lot of times it's not, but when it does, man, does it change everything, right? So I would say what you're going to see with robotics is you're probably not going to see the whole automation of the entire human being. But what you're going to see is a moment where it's like when Henry Ford did, like with the assembly line and making human and organizing human beings and machines together really well. That's probably what you're going to see with
yeah.
robotics and roofing and home improvement at large. Is you're going to have the human beings integrated with technology to a really very, very high degree of efficiency. That's going to make the cost come down. It's going to help your sales if you get on early because you're going to be able to sell at better prices because your installation costs are going to come down. So it's going to affect everything from your bottom line to your top line because it's just going to become an amazing. It's going to become a cost saver first, but then it's going to become a revenue driver once homeowners catch on.
And it's not like all this happens at once. So that's why
No.
I get a little less scared when I sit and meditate with the fear that comes with AI. Sometimes it's like I'm sitting with it and I'm saying like you can make little pivots at a time, a little pivot. You can add one little piece of AI to your roofing business
Yes.
this year.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You can
Oh
make
yeah.
you can add one thing. You don't have to go and run and add every single thing. You could just make one improvement by adding virtual ride-alongs this year, for instance.
Yes. Yeah.
And as time goes on, you make one more improvement to your process in 2025 that includes one other element of AI.
Yes.
And then as time goes on, it's like, okay, I'm not scared of this stuff anymore. I'm actually the guy leveraging it. I'm
Yes.
actually the person that's getting the most out of this. And I think like it's just really don't get stuck in it scares me. The end product scares me, so I'm not gonna make any progress.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like what happens with every industry. We've seen it, right? There's always displacement. How do you think taxi drivers felt with Ubers, right? Probably felt pretty scared, right? But the best taxi drivers, what did they do? They became Uber drivers, right? So how do you think Uber drivers are feeling now with driverless cars, right? So like, you see what I'm saying? But just like every new technology that comes into humans, it takes away a bunch of jobs and it creates a bunch of new jobs that didn't exist before. Like with Rilla, for instance. Managers are still doing their job of doing, ride-alongs and stuff like that. They're just doing it virtually. But now you're actually creating more jobs. There's like a lot of our customers who are now hiring entire divisions of sales coaches that are remote, complete, like they call them AI coaches. There's an AI coach. It's like
That's crazy.
Their job, they're remote sales coaches who can do virtual ride-alongs on Rilla, and their title's an AI coach, and their job is to go to the conversations, create libraries, create clips, distribute those content for training for the company. So you've actually created an entire division of work that didn't exist before, because before we didn't have that much information, right? Before we had no information. Now we have all this abundance of information, and you can actually have people working with it, which is what I told you guys. Like, email does not exist as a job before. Like, people didn't do that, but now so many people are sending so much email because it's so easy to use the technology. So of course it's going to be displacement. Of course there's going to be some jobs that are going to be lost, but at the other end, you're going to see if you ask me what are going to be jobs in 50 years, I have no idea, because it's impossible to predict what human imagination can come up with. And so, like, when you think about AI, think of like, okay, yes, it's going to displace some jobs. So what if it goes right? What if it works? What is it going to do, right? What jobs is it going to create, right? Because that's what people don't like to talk about with new technology. It's like, oh, it's all gloom and doom, right? But it also creates new industries, right? The fact that you and I are talking right now virtually is because somebody created this new technology that enabled us to do this, right? And now you can grow your business faster because you can have a podcast remote, right? You don't have to get me to it displaced me having to travel, so it lowered the airline industry, but it grew some, you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter.
Well, where can people get started with this, and what does the beginning of the process look like if they wanted to work with Rilla?
So if you guys want to learn more about Rilla, you can go to Rilla.com. That's RILLA.com. And you can book a demo with one of our highly trained sales consultants who have been trained with the latest and greatest of AI technology. I do ride-alongs on every single one of our calls because I love using Rilla. It's my favorite product. So our salespeople are very well trained. And before you book a demo, if you're interested, you could go to our customer stories page and you can see how we've helped other contractors, exactly like you, increase their conversion rates by 20%, 40%, average tickets by 17% in only quarters of using Rilla. So, and if you are interested in general sales insights and general sales data, like the ones that we're talking about here, you guys can go to the Rilla Labs. That's Rilla.com/Rilla Labs. Or you can follow us on YouTube and Spotify, where we have the Rilla Labs podcast, where we unpack a lot of this data that we figured out from analyzing millions of conversations. So, yeah.
Always inspiring, sir. I think that conversation was really fun. So thank you for being on the show. And thank you everyone for watching. The podcast is put on by hookagency.com, Hook Agency all over social media. And please like, comment, subscribe. And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, if you'd rate and review the podcast. Thank you, everyone.